Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. It's great to be here with you doing another partner series webinar that Domotz likes to do. Today we are here with CloudRadial. I'm actually super excited about this because of the fact that we get a lot of questions from our service providers and our integrators about, how do we keep communications going with our customers? And CloudRadial actually has a platform dedicated just to that. So I'm super excited to have this. I see that people are still joining in, so I'll just ramble here for another few seconds.
That's the play.
Yeah, we've got Ricky with us from CloudRadial. I mean, Ricky, do you want to work on any of your comedy skit, any humor right now?
I'm working on it, but they're really inappropriate, and my boss he told me that if I keep doing it, he's going to fire me.
No, I have to say I have a problem. Sometimes I say inappropriate things, and Violet on our side, sometimes she has to fix that in the social world. So I do my best to keep it clean.
I hang out with a lot of techs, which is it's like every now and then I'm sure everyone who would ever listen to this is a problem, where it's like as presentable as this is, every time we have a nice presentation, that Teams message at the bottom talking about tickets, I just have to, like the fastest gun in the West, to just turn that off as fast as possible and forget. Familiar with the struggle.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, before we get started into our webinar today, I always like to go over a couple of logistics things here. First of all, during these webinars, we want you to ask questions. This is a presentation between, Domotz and CloudRadial in this case, and we know that questions always come up. We're going to be showing a little bit about Domotz. We're going to be showing a little bit about CloudRadial. We'll talk about the integration of the two and how that benefits you. But take advantage of that GoToWebinar control panel and ask those questions. We actually have team members from both Domotz and CloudRadial on the webinar. They're in the background taking advantage of the tool, and they're able to answer any questions that do come up. If we don't get to those, or if you have maybe more detailed questions, feel free to use our emails, right? Reach out to sales@domotz.com, reach out to info@cloudradial.com, and our team will definitely take care of you. Couple of things about the topics today, and then we'll get into some introductions. I definitely want you to get to know Ricky here. We're going to talk something about Domotz. The reason we've structured it this way is because this is a partner series webinar. We know we have a bunch of Domotz users that are new to CloudRadial. We also have a bunch of CloudRadial users that are less familiar with Domotz. So we're going to talk a little bit about both, but where we want to spend the bulk of our time is actually in the integration of the two and addressing questions on why the two together work really well. I often use the phrase, 1 + 1 = 3, and I think that this is a great example where the value proposition of Domotz and what we're trying to do with customer loyalty and whatnot fits in really well with the documentation aspects and the reporting aspects that CloudRadial has. So we'll address that through this, and then we're definitely going to leave time for Q&A, because I know that that's always been popular in these webinars. Okay, let's talk about us a little bit. Let me introduce myself, and then Ricky, I'm going to have you come in. My name's JB Fowler, Chief Product Officer here at Domotz. Part of my role is to make sure that what we at Domotz are building really meets our vision and mission statements that we have. It's about making you as a service provider, as an integrator, much more efficient, which we think we've hit the nail on that head. We're helping you with asset management. We're helping you with network diagnostics. We're helping you with security in many aspects of what we do. And with that, it's about generating that customer loyalty and giving you the tools to report to your customers about what's going on in the network, and frankly, making you look like a hero. And that's my job, is to make sure we're meeting that. With me today, I've got Ricky. Ricky, please introduce yourself. Tell us how long you've been at CloudRadial and all the greatness that you do there.
First of all, thank you very much for not even attempting my last name. That's very brave, and many people take the plunge and don't do it. Cecchini, and I love it. But yes, I am the Director of Product Services at CloudRadial. CloudRadial, and we'll see this in a little bit, is the shortest way I can kind of describe it as a client portal. It does a lot of stuff that is both inherently valuable to the client and also for reporting and kind of VCIO purposes. So there's a lot in there. But my job specifically is to kind of get MSPs set up and running in there, anything from actual consultations to walkthroughs to webinars to just creating content, making sure that they have a good understanding. I talk to, at this point, it might even be in the thousands of MSPs, and I'm always looking to talk to more to see how we can kind of grease the wheels and make the account management and just client-facing presentation of everything that you guys do more palatable, more easy, and just less stressful overall. That's kind of the goal. We're going to see how Domotz is doing a lot of stuff to help that out. And in general, I think it's going to be a really, really good webinar, this one.
You know, Ricky, a lot of the Domotz users probably are familiar with the fact that Domotz actually was started really as more of an Italian company. So we have a lot of Italian roots. So I get to practice on Italian names quite a bit when I'm talking to our team. We have about 30 plus developers that are based in Pisa, Italy. So that's where your roots are, correct?
I am a Roman man. I do not be fooled. I'm not American. I got a very good American accent, but yeah, I like to trick people into thinking that I am not. But that's why I was really excited, because as soon as I see the Italian names, I always shoot a little like parli italiano. Let's show you. Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden it's like, let's go, baby. But yeah.
Well, speaking, let's go.
Start. So yeah,
let's get the show on the road here. So what is Domotz about? I want to lead into this first. A lot of our users will know this, but for those CloudRadial users, I want you to get an understanding of what we are. Fundamentally, we're a network management system. Okay, we do a really good job of essentially looking at the network holistically. We're going to give you all the tools to be able to manage the routers, the firewalls, the managed switches, the access points that are out there. We're going to give you visibility into those that you really wouldn't have otherwise unless you're diving into the switch itself and into the management portal or the command line interface. What Domotz has done is we've made it really, really easy for you to get awareness of what's on the network and then managing that network itself. We work really well with documentation tools. One of the first things that we do when a Domotz agent is actually activated on that network is we'll scan the network. We'll then classify the devices by not only MAC address, but we're going deeper and we're telling you the make, the model, and more importantly, the type of device that's on there. If you're walking into a job, or if this is a customer that you've had and they're installing new things without your awareness, Domotz is going to bring that to your attention. And we're going to let you know what that is. What that device is and how it may be affecting your network. And that really gets into the management side of the things. Once you understand what's on that network, being able to log into those devices, whether it's through the command line interface or logging in through their web portals or even using their cloud-based systems, Domotz gives you access into those securely and remotely from anywhere in the world. And more importantly, if there's devices that are misbehaving, or if there are devices that are falling offline that shouldn't be, or you want to understand more network diagnostics and what's going on, Domotz has the inside information into that. And we bring that to the forefront in a very, very easy to use interface. I bring up security and awareness because over the last 5, 6 years, really even 20 years since the network has been around, security has always been in question. One of the things that Domotz does so cleanly and so easily is letting you know what are these devices that are on the network. You deal with multiple VLANs, you deal with lots of subnets. Domotz has the ability to give you awareness into all of these. Whether you're dealing with like an access control system, right? You're dealing with security cameras, you're dealing with point of sale systems. If there are new devices, IP addresses showing up on these networks that shouldn't be there, we're going to tell you about that. We're going to let you know about it so you can take action. If there are ports being opened on the router or the firewall that shouldn't be there, right? Bringing awareness to that is something that we do. We never claim to be a SOC. We're not necessarily a security operations center. We do view ourselves more as a NOC, right? A network operations center. But the idea is giving you visibility into the whole network at a holistic level so that you ultimately, per our value proposition, can run your business more efficiently. You can know when something's happening on the network before your customer does, and we can ultimately generate more customer loyalty. So how do we do some of that? First of all, it's about that classification and discovery of the devices. It's about giving you the tools to alert when something on the network is not working as expected. And if something is in that state, being able to power cycle it, being able to securely log in and manage that. That's what Domotz is about. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this was easy to deploy and easy to use. For us, you can easily deploy a Domotz agent within a matter of minutes. Once you associate that agent to your cloud account, we start doing the work for you. We start automatically discovering the network, start mapping out the topology. And again, it's about making you more efficient. That's what we're really about. I think the best way to demonstrate this is that I need to insert a Domotz demo right here. Let me log into my Domotz account. In fact, let's log into the very first page that you see. You see this very knock view. I'm not going to dive into great details about this. We have plenty of webinars about that. We do Domotz demo webinars that are live once every 2 weeks. And if you want to learn more, I invite you to sign up for that. But let me touch on a couple of high-level things. This knock screen that you see here, this Network Operations Center view, really gives you insight into all of the different devices that you are managing in your network. As you can see, very easy to read screen, red, yellow, green status. As you would expect, when something's red, a site is in a troubled state, power's out, ISP is down. Fundamentally, the agent is no longer communicating with the cloud. And when things are green, it's running as expected. But where it gets interesting is when you have devices that are yellow. In this view, it's a very multi-tenant view. So we're ready to help you with tens, hundreds, thousands of customers on this view, okay? But when you dive into a single site, when you get out of that multi-tenant view, you're going into the dashboard, the network-centric dashboard of what's going on in that system. I touched on how easy it is to start with Domotz. The very first thing that we'll do when a Domotz agent gets activated is we will start to scan this network. We'll look for all the devices that are in this network and bring awareness to that. So here I'll just look at this camera that was discovered in this particular IoT lab, which fundamentally is my house. This is what we're showing you. When we scan for a device, we first of all do an ARP request. We're looking at the VLAN level, so the layer 2 level of network. We're getting MAC addresses. We're going up to layer 3, getting IP addresses. We're then classifying these devices by the make, the model, and that type that I talked about, so we know what's going on. We then take it further. We'll start to look at all the ports that are available for management of this device. So here in this case, this camera is at port 80, but if we look at some other devices like switches, we'll look at SSH, we'll look at Telnet. If there are custom ports that you need for management, we're going to discover that and make that available as well. Another thing that we will do in all this, in fact, while I'm on this, let's go back to the dashboard. When we discover network infrastructure devices, we look for things like SNMP. The reason we do that is we want to be able to map the environment. We'll interrogate the switches that are there. And the reason we'll do that, let me get this screen out of my way, excuse me. We will start to look at which interfaces are available on these switches. At each individual port, we'll start to look at which device that we've discovered is connected to that, or which multiple devices may be discovered there. We will then look at how much power is being consumed by these particular devices and show that inside the user interface. We'll look at things like bandwidth. All of this is really helping you with the network diagnostics aspect of what it is that Domotz does. One of the great things, and we get a lot of questions about this, so I do want to show this. When it comes to SNMP, we do quite a bit there. So I look at this Geist Watchdog. This is essentially a temperature humidity sensor that is network based. We can easily add sensors to it. If we go to the add sensors, we can add temperature, we can discover what's available. I already have these on here, so I'll just show you this. Here you can see we can start to map over time how the temperature is changing in this particular device. We also then, of course, can set up alerts for all these. We integrate with these alerts with different ticketing systems. So all of your favorite PSA tools that are out there, you can integrate these in, so that way when a system goes into a troubled state, you can automatically be notified with the ticket. We give you information like the device, of course, the agent that has the problem. We give you a history of this. So there's a lot of information that we provide back to you. All in all, you can see that Domotz fundamentally is about discovery of these network-based devices, management of these devices, secure remote connectivity into these devices as well. For instance, if I wanted to take this switch and I wanted to create a secure connection into that, you can see how fast we'll do that and bring this page up. So once I add in my super secret passwords here, Ricky, don't tell anybody what my super secret passwords are, okay? So now you, but now you can see I'm directly connected to that switch, which is back at my house, and I'm here in the office. So that's how fast and easy it is to do this. So I've talked a lot. I've come up to the 15-minute time window that I told Ricky I wouldn't take more than. So what I want to do now is close down this portion of the demo. This gives you a touch of what it is that Domotz can do. And I want to start now focusing on the aspects of CloudRadial. So with all that being said, Ricky, did you see anything about Domotz that you weren't aware of or that maybe I should have touched on that's interesting to you, or do you want to dive into your section?
Well, I think, again, even the post, I'm obviously going to dive into some of the CloudRadial stuff. What's really interesting is that we're almost talking to a different audience, but in the same team. So it's kind of like an iceberg, where Domotz right now is you're looking at all of the deep cut stuff that the technicians, anyone who's actually working on stuff cares about, because that's the actionable things that drive the action. And when it comes to CloudRadial, it's going to be, again, kind of a shift, because when we come back up to the tip of the iceberg, which is what the client sees, it's more so like how we present that and how we kind of make that actionable. So I think in general, I guess one of the questions I have logistically is, what does deployment actually look like? As I know that there's a device involved. Obviously, we're going to talk about a secret special deal we have with you guys, but like, is there, just walk me through how it actually gets set up in the first place.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mentioned the fact that Domotz is simple to deploy and easy to use, and that's one of our key value props, actually. First of all, there's a single Domotz agent that can be deployed, or that needs to be deployed on the network or networks that you are monitoring. We have many different ways that agent can get onto the network. There are Windows-based agents, which by far is the easiest. You just spin up that Domotz executable, that agent, and then you log into it and associate your username and password to it, and it takes over from there. I mean, it automatically starts to discover all the devices. When it comes to VLAN configurations, you may need to manage the network interface card, but we've got really easy to use guides for that. If you are more Linux savvy, you can spin up different Linux systems. We've got Dockers, we've got VMs that you can deploy. We're on embedded systems, so NAS drives like Synology, QNAP. I mean, you can spin up a Domotz agent onto those. We also have a little black box that's available on Amazon. In fact, I think you guys are gonna make that maybe available, super secret. I can't talk about it now, but to some of the new users. So once you activate that agent, deployment is simple. And in fact, we have people and we have white papers that will take advantage of scripting to automatically deploy Domotz agents as new clients get spun up.
Yeah, again, it's like when it comes down to the actual logistics, I know a lot of times when we do these webinars, we do partner stuff, a lot of times the MSP crowd, I'm sure people watching this want to know like the nitty gritty of it. And it really is like, especially when it's a solution that's plug and play, it's kind of like what you see is what you get, and that's fantastic. Like, I mean, the fact that it autofills all that stuff, and the fact that you can use that to connect in, I mean, the speed itself is really kind of remarkable. And I have, actually, surprise, I have a list of questions that I'll probably end up asking, because even when we do the webinars, I think stuff on the fly that I think is just interesting that I would see people that I talk to all the time coming up with. So I'll probably hit you with some stuff as we roll on and on, if that's cool.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about CloudRadial, right? High level. Again, what I said about the audiences being a little bit different is if we switch it around, we're focused on, CloudRadial being an MSP specific client portal. We're focused on how we can kind of take the value that you would kind of assume a client portal has and really drive home the point. So we want to get people using it more than once. I think a lot of mistakes that most client portals make, especially the ones that like a PSA offers, is that they do the job of like, here's a ticket, right? And it can be so much more than that, especially when you're fighting a lot of different stuff like client attrition, you're trying to improve retention, you're trying to run QBR. So there's a lot of independent bits that go into keeping a client and just keeping them engaged. So when you look at what CloudRadial does feature-wise, we work with obviously vendors like Domotz to try to enrich the experience, but fundamentally we kind of have these core pillars of just things that we're we're working towards. So you have them up on the screen right now. It's trying to make that entire experience a single kind of space. So whether that's an intranet, whether that's the ticketing part, the training, right? There's a lot of stuff in there that should engage them to actually come in, customize it, and make it their own. And then when we go further into that, right, we start talking about actual reporting. We start talking about automation for VCIOs, improving compliance stuff, and turning a lot of the technical stuff into non-technical stuff, so the points of contact and the end users know what you're talking about, and kind of hitting that sweet balance of you guys have the wealth of information to act upon that, but the client always sees that you have that action happening. And that comes to a kind of a strategy we have. So obviously, again, we're going to look at a lot of these features, but when you look at, yeah, go ahead. You got the right
instinct there. Yeah, I was so excited to go to the next slide, Ricky.
No, you have the right instinct. That's exactly where I was going. We kind of have this thing that we talk about, which, again, I know a lot of people in the webinar are kind of just, getting settled here, but it drives this big thing that we're trying to push, which is like the entire client lifecycle from landing them to onboarding and managing growth. That's kind of it, right? From a prospect all the way to, engaging them in like QBRs and keeping that going. And a lot of the stuff that we're kind of into is this process of like, if you can show more, you can make more, you can keep more, you can do a lot of that stuff that most people want to do. And especially when it comes to like justifying pricing and making sure people understand exactly what you do, it's just really hard to do that if you can't focus all that data somehow. And that's what I think we're really strong at, is other than just presenting them a place where they can log a ticket and do stuff like that, the deeper cuts are what really ends up giving a lot of the value of CloudRadial. So I'd like to, if amenable, I'd like to take a spin and show a little bit of our portal around, and then we'll probably end up getting a little question.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me change presenter, and while I'm doing that, one of the things that we always talk about within Domotz, let me make sure I give you presentation, is reporting is so important to engaging with that customer. And I mentioned customer loyalty. One aspects that I always talk about and try to educate, whether it's service providers, integrators, even IT departments within an enterprise, right? Communications with your clients, your customers, is so critical to making sure that they understand your value and why you're there. And this is the tool, right? This is a tool that easily allows that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's something, again, it's like we're kind of, CloudRadial is kind of getting out there, and we're doing a lot more conferences and stuff and talking to people. I think even getting the stack down is something that is obviously difficult, and understanding that and using that to its full efficiency is very difficult. But that missing piece that's super difficult is how you can take that. And again, if you can explain it to like a 5-year-old, then you've kind of done the job. And that's what we're focused on. So again, back to that iceberg bit, we're going to see even how Domotz comes in, where relatively speaking, it's going to be a lot like simpler than what you saw there, but that's okay, because again, the end user is not going to need to see this mind blow.
Right.
But we're looking at this this kind of intranet view at the very beginning, and again, we're focusing on a lot of different features here. So what we're working with is we have all the different features CloudRadial can do on the left-hand side of the menu. And like I said, initially, we're just trying to make sure that delivering a client portal, delivering something that actually adds value, means delivering something that end users want to use. So if you were to work your way down, right, and just kind of take a look at that stuff, a lot of it is very non-technical at the beginning, right? We start off with, hey, what if they could have an intranets area where you could put links to their stuff, right? A lot of people want to use this for companies' line of businesses, applications, and then other times they will, the MSP themselves wants to use this as their one-stop shop for, hey, you can get to your invoice portal or your network portal or this or that, and making this the hub. If we work our way down, right, we're not going to go through all the tabs for the sake of the demo, but we're going to see a lot of other features that I think are going to be very, very useful to them. So a shared knowledge base area, right? We're not going as far as to provide an entire thing that you have to work, because I know a lot of times, especially in our space, people already use documentation systems. They don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I think this ends up being a nice hybrid, and a lot of CloudRadial is built on this principle. We don't want to uproot everything you've ever done. We know you're using a lot of different stuff. So we want to try to take these things, and if you want to create it and do stuff directly within here, you certainly can. But a lot of other people want to say, yeah, I already got my documentation. Let's just pull it in from somewhere else. Let's open it in new windows, right? That kind of thought is very pervasive through here. So whether it's, again, applications or KV articles or the company directory, even down to like an LMS, you've got the concept that we can deliver a lot of stuff directly within the portal to them. And that's powerful. I mean, you can build your own stuff, and that's really good for client engagement and stickiness. But even more so for a lot of people that they want to offer something of value, allowing the client themselves to add their own stuff, right? Add their own courses, add their own documents, keeps them coming back. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with is you can deploy something out, but how do you make them use it? Well, this is a good way, right? Giving them the options to do so. In brief, right, we wrap that around the ticketing experience as well. It certainly does a very, very strong ticketing presentation here. And what you're going to see in the ticketing is that we're not replacing, obviously, the PSA. We don't have the technicians running in CloudRadial because being a client portal, it's more so for account managers, but it can save a lot of times for the techs because, I talked to a lot of them. I know that the techs hate getting, one word help emails more than anybody else in the world. So the idea, I think, is something that's very, very common. You basically want to try to get as much information as possible. And again, wrapping the ticketing experience around other stuff that they actually want to use should make it less painful for them to ever even submit it. Because a lot of people go like, I won't log into the PSA, I can just send an email. Well, now they have a reason to be somewhere else, right? So when we look at a lot of the stuff, oh, my email, I'm having issues, they fill out the form. Obviously, this is all customizable. Even this demo account we're looking at, all the stuff that you start off with in the trial, we give you a bunch of sample stuff so you're not starting off from scratch. But as far as the customizations themselves, they go deep. Because I know, again, a lot of the people on this call that are more familiar with, again, the service side of things want to see stuff where they can really get granular. So asking the right questions, doing confirmation messages, choosing exactly where they route to. This particular instance is hooked up to Synchro. We support ConnectWise and Autotask and Kaseya and Synchro, and even just email connectors as well. I mean, we try to be very open, but the deeper cuts of this synchronization and making sure that you can trigger workflows off of it is really, really strong. So it doesn't have to be just as simple as like, yeah, they go in and click a bookmark. It's like, it can go a lot more time saving than that. So I can go on and on about this stuff, and you can see, we've kind of got service requests and tickets, and ultimately the strategy is there to get them into the portal and using it. But for the sake of what we're talking about, even for this specific webinar, we're talking more about the deeper cuts. So what I'm seeing right now in the portal is obviously a lot of options. Your typical end user would not see these options. They would end right about here at university. So infrastructure down to account is how we're going to take the reporting stuff, certainly even the Domotz information, as we'll see in a second, and we're going to turn that into an actionable thing that becomes part of a bigger plan, right? And when we look at it, there's a lot of different ways to. Yeah, go ahead.
Ricky, the thing that I'm seeing, I've used the term communications with customers, which sometimes communications can be thought of as kind of a one-way path, right? Me as the MSP out to the customer. But what you guys are really showing here is more of what I would probably phrase as an engagement tool with the client.
That's a good point, because again, it's like we found, and again, I have that so many times, everyone on our team does, where it's like, how do I get them to use it? Well, it's like, it's almost like the wrong mentality. It's not so much how you just get, it's like, I want to force this on them, let's get them to use it. It's like, well, if you give them something of value and they actually do a back and forth, then it is an engagement, because they're actively requesting, I want to see this instead. I want to put my links here. I want to put this ticket. Can we get this going? And that's what keeps them coming back. So thank you. I'll steal that for marketing purposes, but thank you. But yeah, and again, I guess this is the most important part now that we talk about the latter part, especially when it comes to Domotz is a prime example, right? We go down to the infrastructure part. This is the part where account managers and techs get kind of, it blurs the lines, where you want to be able to show the client that you're doing work, but you also don't want to necessarily give them the full thing. That might confuse them and might just overwhelm them. So it's a healthy kind of balance between show them enough to know that they're getting what they're getting, what they're paying for, but also not enough that they just blow up. So when we look at a client portal like CloudRadial that pulls in, for example, the network information, guess what, right? We're not going as deep as to giving the client remote control capabilities into their own stuff. But when I see the stuff pulled up, I can see, hey, here's my computer, right? I've got this, I've got the details right here. And a lot of times, again, one of the chief questions that we get asked a lot is like, how does the client end up using this, right? Especially when you look at some of these deeper cuts. Same thing with like endpoint information. We can pull some of that stuff in. I don't actually have any on this one. I made it on this one. But same idea, right? We're able to pull in some of the information here and give them some high-level cuts of what AV is it using, what's the configuration item, and so on and so forth. And this is part of what I was talking about before with that healthy balance, where it's like, well, what is actionable about this for the client? Well, at the basal level, you're giving them a way to show them what you're doing for them, right? What are you monitoring? Why are you monitoring it? What are you monitoring for? and again, a cut down version that is acceptable for clients. Eventually, what CloudRadial is really good at is not just letting this sit, because I think a lot of MSPs struggle with that as well, where they hand reports off and they say, look, this. The client doesn't know what to do with that. But if you can take that information and make it actionable, then you're cooking with gas. So a lot of the stuff that we end up doing with this is running it through stuff like policies. So what you can do is you can take your raw data that you have here, and you can set up various types of policies to actually come to the client with real conclusions, real suggestions, right? Where could we be doing better from a security perspective or continuity or decision making? And you can see, I think I have 2 different accounts hooked up here, so I want to be jumping around a little bit. Something like this is actionable. It's something that you can take to a point of contact that doesn't know much, and they know, well, we have some things we can work on, right? There's some things we want to start up. And that's really the conversation we want to instill. We're not trying to necessarily run this big complex game where they have to go and self-manage it, but as an account manager to be able to pull the information, sit with a client, pull up something digital and go through it and talk about where the initiatives are is really, really strong for them. They have the one-stop shop window just like the client does. There's no more having to gather it, and you do the same thing. I mean, Domotz stops you from having to log into a bunch of different stuff, and it saves a bunch of time just inherently in pulling all the information. Same thing kind of for the conversation. So taking that technician, taking the account manager and putting them on the same page by simplifying it down is kind of the strength here.
Yeah.
I could go on, but the gist of this is that when we take all this information, we want to end up putting this in a plan to be actionable. And we'll talk about this in a sec, but, as we kind of get to the question answer part, but being able to lay out a plan to say, what about this stuff? Well, I'm seeing outdated things here. I'm seeing security risks here. Let's build a plan to actually improve your organization, right? Not just managing it, but actually a go forward plan. And that's what's going to keep them engaged. We've placated them. We've given them the basic stuff to get them logging in, but we've also given the points of context, the information they need to actually to get going, right?
I really like the aspects of this planning because this gives you as a service provider a way to say, okay, we've engaged with this client, they are our customer. I need to, just as, let's say an example, right? With Domotz, we've discovered that they've got all these like unified communications devices that we may not be managing right now. I want to talk to them about that next month or next quarter, right? And being able to put that into your plan to say, here's the discussion, I think is great, right? It's how the two of us working together become really beneficial.
It's one of those things too that back to the back and forth, because Domotz again is so very rich, especially for technicians and how they can actually do stuff in here. And obviously this isn't designed for that. It's designed to be able to walk through, but that's the key. It's the ability to be able to say, okay, say I'm going through the network devices and I want to bring to the attention that something shouldn't be there. Like you said, we just discovered something that may be an issue, right? Hey, there's something listening in on the network, shouldn't be there. An account manager, planner, and a client alike can actually notate these things and basically go, hey, there's an issue with this. Let's throw this on the planner and let's write some notes down here. So when it becomes time to talk to the client, just have that conversation. Again, they're not having to scramble and do multiple things. They're really able to get that one-touch experience throughout both platforms, which is a lot of times what they're after. So to what you were saying, when it comes back to laying out a plan and you're able to say, hey, we should do this, or we should improve your security, or we want to talk about this initiative, in a typical bubble, you're having to cycle through a bunch of reports, you're having to scramble to kind of make that case. When a client can see this in their own portal and you're just drawing the dots together and putting the plan out, then it becomes a lot easier to forget selling, but just evidence-based consulting is what it is. Going, I see this, my tech see this, here's what you see, here's what the go forward plan is. So it kind of all makes sense when you draw a line through it, right?
When you say it as like evidence-based consulting, it's a great phrase. I think that instills more of a partnership, right? Because you've now engaged with them to say, hey, this is, I'm going to paraphrase this, but this is your business. I want to make you better, right? Let me help you, and here's the ways in which I see I can do that. And I think that's it's so valuable. It's so valuable to your clients.
Yeah, and you and I were talking before the webinar, so I'll do a little pre-talk, right? And one of the things that you'd asked me that I get asked a bunch, right? And just in general, when it comes to something like this, again, I firsthand saw this at a conference. One of the chief concerns for people is how they can either, they ask like, can I charge more for this? How do I charge? Like, you manage security, and I actually was talking to my team about this before. And one of the issues that a lot of people have is with any service, and certainly network monitoring is a big one that this falls into, is when I have someone else that comes into a prospective meeting, right? And they have a home listener that they set up and it barely works, but they come into the prospect and they say, we do network monitoring, right? Whereas someone else comes in and they have all their stuff together, they have a proper PSA, they have Domotz, they're pulling all that stuff organized, they're clean, but when they come in to the prospect meeting, they have the same line item, they have network monitoring, right? And it's really frustrating from an MSP's perspective because usually they get priced out that way, right? They come in and they go, well, we do this and we want to charge this much, so either they eat the cost or they have to charge less, and it's really, really frustrating. And a big point of CloudRadial is like, if you can walk into that confident or that client meeting confident, you can say, not only am I going to give you this, I will show you what I'm doing. I will put that in front of you every day, and I'll make it easy for you to access. So even though you're not necessarily, like, again, the client themselves may not be rifling through this, when it comes time to have that discussion, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about and why, and the other people can't because they don't have that visibility and it's just not as well organized. So it's using your organization to your strengths. So again, a lot of time people go, how do I charge more? I don't even know if I mean, you could charge more certainly, but it's about holding your head up high when you charge your prices because you can prove why the value is there, I think, for most people.
Yep. Yeah. You know, one thing, Ricky, what you touch on a point that we have, right, in separate conversations with customers. In fact, I've done webinars on this in the past, and you know, the title of our webinars, just to be a little humorous, is "Don't Sell Domotz." Right. The idea is that you really shouldn't be line iteming network monitoring and calling out the specific price for that. That's one of the worst things I think you can do. And I have to imagine you would say, hey, you know, CloudRadial does not go as a line item on your, no, right.
Yeah.
Right. These are tools, both of us, right? CloudRadial and Domotz, and there are others out there, but you should think of them as tools for you as a service provider to run your business more efficiently. It's why I harp on that so much. I mean, Domotz is there to help eliminate truck rolls. We're there to help you know before a customer knows that there's a problem. And you have to figure out as a service provider, how do you turn that capability, you know, let's call it that speed and feed, into value that your client understands, right? Minimizing downtime is a great phrase, right? Being able to not do a truck roll, right? Saving time, saving money, right? Those are all just super valuable. And those are the things I get across. You guys, I mean, clearly you're talking about some of the things from an engagement, to use that word again, right, with the clients that I think is so valuable, that differentiates you, right?
It does, and I think that's what's sweet about something like this, where it's like it's not a bad thing that we're talking to kind of separate audiences, because again, it's separate audiences in the same team. So when we talk about, like, I wanted to ask you this too, like, what would you say is the biggest time saving part of Domotz? Like when it comes to the internal team specifically, like, is there something that is like tried and true? Is like, hey, the ability to remediate. I read some of your case studies before, and I read some people that were just going like crazy to fix something, like, but
yeah, you know, it's a great question. So one of the biggest aspects to Domotz that drives efficiency for the service provider is really knowledge about the network and knowledge about what's going on. I mean, we all know shit. Oh, I'm not supposed to say foul language. Sorry.
That's
I wouldn't do it, but I'm just going to say it. Shit happens, right? So it happens out there, right? Things break, right? I mean, these are electronics. These are very complex systems that are out there, and they're different types of systems. And when you plug one in, it may stop another one from working. Somebody plugs a video camera in or a security camera in, all of a sudden it's broadcasting over the whole network, right? Stuff happens. The biggest value that Domotz has is bringing awareness to what just happened on the network, what that device is that's on the network, what its MAC address is, and what are the resources that it's consuming. That right there helps service providers immediately understand, one, that there's a problem on the network, but then two, if they do have to do a truck roll, if they can't solve it remotely, they know what they need to bring out so that they're not doing 2 truck rolls. I mean, those are some of the biggest, I guess I would say, use cases that we see from service providers and integrators that saves them not only time, but also money. And in the end, it's what helps them generate that loyalty, that partnership with their clients, and makes them feel good about what they're doing.
You know, it's funny is like we're talking about two different things in the same house, and when it comes down to like the client-facing experience of that, it really is the same thing. Because obviously, when it comes to even the ticketing stuff we were talking about earlier, it's like this is something that we want to save the tech's time, but why would we want to do that? What does that have to do with the client? Well, again, when it comes to like the speed of resolution, the speed of having an issue, you can see that like, hey, the IT provider I have right now can solve tickets in 2 seconds, and I can see that, right? I can go into here and I can literally pull all that stuff. And in this case, this is a ticket view, but same idea. I can literally roll in and I can say, hey, we have that issue was resolved in 3 seconds. And again, it's that transparency and visibility in all of these things that let me know that it's getting done. And this is happening. And it's like, I'm paying these things and having that transparent window where, again, we're not ruining a tech's lives by making them learn a new tool for us, but
yeah, you in your platform, and I hadn't seen this before. This was the first time I saw it, but where you can engage with the customer and have them report. You know, you showed the example of I'm having trouble with my account, but I also noticed there's a network section, right? And if somebody wants to open a ticket that says, hey, my computer's not connected to the network. Well, the beauty of that is, okay, the service provider gets that notification. One of the very first things they should do is look and see, is the network functioning as we expect? You know, is it a green site? Is this site looking okay? Is there a wireless access point that's offline? Or is there something misbehaving, right? That's a very, very simple check through the Domotz user interface that makes it easy to just eliminate the infrastructure. And now you can just focus on that client's laptop or the phone or whatever that system is that's not connected. Just another use case that I could see where your system in conjunction with a tool like Domotz is just valuable.
I think so. It's certainly like when it comes down to that specifically, especially ticketing, we've put a lot of thought into it because again, a lot of service providers, they want to just get as fast as possible. When it comes to scalability as well, we talked to a lot of people that onboarding a bunch of technicians internally and trying to get them as scaled up to make your senior guy as experienced or at least as effective as your junior most guy, it takes a lot of processes, and the easier the tools give you the visibility into, the faster the management, the better. One of the things that you just talked about that my Jeff, the CEO, would probably be super excited is actually that there's a section in here for checklists. So it comes in as task items in the PSA. Oh. A lot of times that's something that I've seen a lot of people do is they'll go through and they'll put task items to literally write their to-dos. So again, whether it's the junior most or the senior most, they're doing the same things. They're running through and saying, have you checked this? Have you checked the Domotz light is green? Have you looked into the site? So there's not really much of a guess. It's very much more process oriented, and that's way more scalable because that makes it so you can repeatedly improve the service and you know why. You go back and tweak things, and that just overall makes for a better customer experience and a technician experience internally.
Yeah. You know, Ricky, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you about with respect to CloudRadial and how service providers are using it, it's probably more of a use case, but you've shown the page where you show all the Domotz information there and kind of the network infrastructure. Do you feel that it's beneficial to the service provider to actually provide all that network infrastructure information to the client? I mean, and the reason I ask this is because I think there's two camps to this. One camp is, I just want my client to know that I'm taking care of them and that's all they need to know. And as long as everything's working, it doesn't matter. But then there's another camp, which is, hey, I want the client to know, let me put it this way, how difficult they are making my job, right? Yeah. I mean, these are all the things that I have to manage with them. And, you know, I'm just looking at yours, right? Seeing Apple TVs in conjunction with printers and all the iPads and other stuff that's on the network, that is difficult. And should I show them that? What's your thoughts on giving this level of visibility to the client?
I think, you know, again, a lot of people are almost afraid to pull the veil back and show the client, but they really shouldn't be. I've come up with a lot of things. One of the actual use cases that happened is a lot of people look at this and are like, yeah, perhaps the CEO, or not the CEO, the like a manager at a Starbucks, if I'm managing that, might not do anything with this. But in cases where you have like a co-managed deal, which is very common nowadays, it's very much appreciated for even someone internally to be able to go in and see stuff, even if it's high level, but they can get the information they need directly from here and kind of take a look at that. From a day-to-day perspective, again, pulling back that veil does do exactly what you said. It goes like, hey, you are making my job a living nightmare because now I have to manage all these devices. We have no standardization. And again, it's all about driving that conversation back down to like, what are we going to do about this? So I insist that, yes, honestly, it may not be something that they do every day, but the fact that you're offering that up in the first place and they can drive that strategy is invaluable. I mean, I can't count because I don't have enough fingers to count the amount of times that people come up to me and they go like, hey, it doesn't matter until it matters, until the client goes, what are we doing for this? What have we done?
Right.
What do you even do? Well, it's been available the whole time. I have logs of it, right? That's the inherent value of something like this, that it may not be something you use every day, but when it counts, it really, really counts.
Yeah. I hear you on that. I definitely hear you on that. So, we are at, so Ricky, we're at the 3/4 of an hour mark, right? 10:45 my time, which I think is awesome. I do want to mention some of the offers that we have, and then I want to get to some Q&A. So yeah, let me share my screen again. I appreciate that. So let's see what's on this next slide. Oh, okay.
Whoa, where's that coming?
Surprise. So this is, we've got 2 slides, okay? 2 slides on this, and I'm super excited about this. So Ricky, I'm gonna let you speak to this one, right? This is essentially for Domotz users, people that are Domotz users today that wanna try out CloudRadial, that got excited about this. So Ricky, why don't you talk about this?
Yeah, so CloudRadial as a platform in general is a month-to-month. There's no commit. It's just, really, really, really very flexible with how it works. And it's based off of a per user pricing. But what we're doing with Domotz is we're giving you unlimited users for 3 months. It's regularly $295 a month for the first tier. We're knocking $100 off that for the first 3 months. That's $195, which is pretty rad. And money back guarantee. So we have a lot of people that they look at something like this and they always wonder like, is it worth it? Am I going to use it? And we have, I'm one of them. We have a really, really strong consultation team that we're dedicated to getting you up and running and making this thing work. We're not just going to abandon you. Like I said, we have a bunch of sample content. We want you to be happy. So 30-day money back guarantee, because we know that sometimes you just don't have the time and you wanted to give it a shot. No hard feelings. But the biggest thing to take away from this is that we're doing a special promotion. We've never done anything like this before, which anyone who's watching the webinar has seen this will know that. We're actually giving an agent box away with a CloudRadial subscription. So that's going to be mega cool because you're going to see the power of what we're talking about on this thing firsthand, and you actually get to do it. It's not just a theoretical thing we're doing. And the deal itself and more details on that are found at cloudradial.com/Domotz.
Yeah, just for awareness, for those that may not be familiar, that box is $99 on Amazon. So you guys are fundamentally giving that away, which I think that's awesome. I haven't seen another partner do that, and this is really cool. I think we're going to get some people that are excited about this to try it, and I'm stoked. I think that's really, really cool that you guys are doing that. This does bring up a question. You guys are, your business model is fundamentally month to month, correct? There's no commitment. Are there long-term commitments with customers, or is it that simple?
That's it.
Yeah, see, that's the same thing we do, right? Domotz is also a month to month, and I know our Domotz users know that, but we try to keep it as simple as possible, right? We believe that Domotz is a tool for you to help be more efficient, and you're going to get that value out of it. And once you're committed to it, you'll like it. So great.
I couldn't agree more. Just that mentality is like, it's refreshing, because I know a lot of people, especially with something like our tool, which is like, it does so much stuff. The last thing you want to do is get stuck in something that you may or may not use. And I think like, if you really have a good product, like we both do, the month-to-month thing, it speaks for itself. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, exactly. I love, by the way, the quote that you have there, right? The more your client sees, the more you sell. That actually kind of gets to that question I asked before, but I'm siding with you on this, which is, giving that level of transparency actually helps you with your business and selling more. So that's that. I like it. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Oh, another one. So for CloudRadial users that are new to Domotz, right? What we're going to offer for you guys, 50% off your first 6 months. So our business model, fundamentally, each agent, $19 a month, right? So you're paying $9.50 per month on those. Just like we talked about with CloudRadial, it's that month-to-month side. You can try us for 21 days. There's no obligation for that. Just get in there, sign up. We are tracking if you have visibility, if you've joined us on this webinar, basically through the next 30 days, you sign up with Domotz and we're going to take care of you with this offer. Of course, I want to say, if you're not seeing that offer on your account, by all means, email support@domotz.com and we'll take care of you. But we're excited about this. We want you guys to try this. We believe that monitoring that network infrastructure, right, giving that visibility to your clients is just something that helps you be better and ultimately makes you look like a hero. So this is what we're about here, and I'm super excited about this. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Excellent.
I did want to, before we get to Q&A, and this is a little bit of surprise, you didn't see this slide here. This is a little bit about Domotz. We found out that we have some users on Facebook that are starting out this thing called the Dugout, right? The Domotz user group. And I just love this, right? I love it because it's a community-driven user group that's out there. And the name Dugout, I think, is just so cool. Because from a base, what's that, Ricky?
I literally whispered under my breath, I was like, damn it, that's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, when you think of a dugout in baseball, right, it's where the team goes, it's where everybody's fighting for each other, they're helping each other, and it's genius. So I'm really liking that, and I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. It's a Facebook user group that's out there, so I just wanted to throw that in there. Now is time for some Q&A. I do want to invite our team, Giancarlo in particular, right? Giancarlo, the Domotz CTO, he's been back there tracking a couple questions that are coming in from people. I know I have some questions that I've been wanting to ask too, but let me throw this out to Giancarlo first to see if there was anything that he took away that either Ricky or myself should address. Are you there, Giancarlo?
Yes, hi JB, hi Ricky. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very great presentation. Yeah, I have some question, and I believe Zach has some question collected in the with the users. And thanks to everybody for attending. It has been very interesting one. So the first one I had is from a user that is kind of new to CloudRadial and very new to Domotz as well. He has seen the Domotz capability of tracking how devices are connected logically between each other and see the topology map in Domotz. He believes that this is a very nice information also to present to the customer. So he was wondering if we have any plan to share this information with CloudRadial. So from the Domotz point of view, there is definitely interest, and we are going to add the topology map as an API. It is not there yet, but there is interest. And I believe Ricky said if you can speak about from CloudRadial point of view, if there is any interest to pull that kind of data.
Oh, absolutely. Something, again, it's like what's really interesting from our perspective is that there is no lack of information. Like what Domotz gives is far more than enough. And what's really difficult from our side is we have to basically determine where does the client get the value out of that information and where is it overkill? And that's one of the things that we always struggle with, where it's like, we don't want to turn it to a point where the client's like, I stopped understanding this. And we want to make it healthy enough that, again, really, perhaps a technical account manager, but they can pull through and they can go, this actually means something, and you can see this kind of stuff. So there's absolute interest. For our side, it's always just difficult finding out where the buck stops there. But we're more than happy to take a look at pulling in more info for sure.
And one thing I would add to that, the network topology map today, you can actually go and save off the image, the scalable vector graphic, or the PNG of that. So you can put that into a report, you can send it out. We have, and Giancarlo and I talk about this when we do our live demo webinars. Domotz has the ability to discover security cameras. We can actually, within the UI, show an image from the security camera. I bring this up because a lot of times if you're monitoring security cameras for a client, you're monitoring that security network, the access control systems for them, making sure that it's always working right, giving them a snapshot in a report of those types of cameras, you can do that, and there are APIs available for that. So there's a lot of power within what Domotz can offer and then what can be reported to the customer.
Yeah, and something I missed that I think is worth saying, I don't necessarily need to show it, but there's a section within CloudRadial that actually supports report archiving from any source. So you can spin up folders. So for example, you might even want to have an additional one for Domotz reports. And each one of those emails or each one of those folders has an individual email. So if you can get clever with auto forwarding them there, you can make that really easy. So you can build a repository of all the reports from any tool in there. So it really helps to add value to the portal.
Yeah, and on that vein, so Seth jumping in here with a question as well. Tony asked about how Domotz can help with QBR and the VCIO process. You know, and just sort of, I guess he's from the CloudRadial perspective asking, you know, how can use that data to make that better.
So that is a great question. Let me start with that, and then Ricky, you jump in. You know, from a Domotz point of view, we do reporting and logging of any access, any device changes, network changes that happen. To me, when I think of a QBR, it's more about, okay, what have I as a service provider done for you as the client? Showing the logs of who on my team has logged in, when they've logged in, what they've done, fundamentally how they've helped manage the system is reported. And we have that available, and you can print that off, whether you do that manually through our reports or you do that through the APIs, right? However that is needed, you can do that. I mean, Ricky, did you have any other thoughts on that?
Within that same planner card system, that supports as well, like a file upload attachment of stuff. So I think when it comes down to having that conversation, if that's a line item and you want to talk about that for this quarter, we want to look at them, being able to upload that and kind of hybridizing that experience, I think is good. And I think, again, it should never be out of context of the greater strategy. So making sure that a report, which is inherently valuable, speaks to what does that mean? Does that mean that we have security issues? Does that mean everything's going as well? Again, it's that healthy balance of proving to them that you're doing the day-to-day, you're doing the stuff you're supposed to, but also never forget to build the go forward. So I honestly think that's pretty much perfect.
Good.
And yeah, one more question from, I believe it was from Eric asking, no, I'm sorry. It was asking, Quentin asking if there'll be any more information being pulled from Domotz CloudRadial, and I can definitely answer that. Absolutely. There's more in the API that we can pull, some stuff like security alerts and things that are relevant to the client. If it's something that will make an impact for the client, we'll certainly pull it. And I think, yeah, the logical view and a couple other things like that for sure.
Seth, to that point, right? And I totally appreciate you mentioning that. And you stated in there what I wanted to say as well, and I'm going to reiterate it, which is we at Domotz are always interested in hearing from our customers about what their needs are. You know, as a product manager, right? My goal is to listen to what your needs are and then figure out how we get that done with our engineering team and with the product itself so that it's more usable for you. Whether that means like, who do we need to integrate with? What do we need to show in our dashboard? How do we work better with CloudRadial and give them the access to the information you want? Let us know, right? Send notes to support@domotz.com. Seth, I think your info at CloudRadial, and you guys can work there, or maybe there's a support group. So
yeah. It's very much the same exact thing. Because again, it's like we struggle with the idea of like, well, what do you guys find most valuable? And again, we need to know, we want to know, it's like what you think has the best value that you know really drives that conversation forward. But I mean, it's like we're always trying to improve it, and the only way we know is obviously if you tell us, and we have that open discourse.
Good. Giancarlo, Seth, how we doing? Other questions? There are questions that I should ask, because I've written down a couple that I wanted to ping to Ricky.
Yeah, go ahead. There were other questions, but either have been addressed by me or Seth directly online. So yeah. I think if you have a question, yeah, you can go ahead.
So, you know, Ricky, let me ask you a question, because I know you had some for me as well that we had thought about, but I want to understand just within the last couple minutes here, do you have any like success stories where, you know, from a CloudRadial perspective, you know, the service providers were able to communicate and it just wowed the customer in ways that, you know, they wouldn't have otherwise known or something? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. In fact, that's kind of what I was alluding to before when we talked about it, where remember how when I pulled up the network devices, I had a guy tell me that that very same thing you were talking about, where the client themselves didn't understand their own sprawl. Like they had never actually, like they heard that they were like, yeah, we have a lot of devices, but until you see that, you go, Jesus, we're running like 15 laptops, 30 iPads, whatever, and you realize that there's just an unbelievable thing. They ended up selling a security project because they realized that sure, they recognized some of the stuff, but they didn't realize how much stuff a network is comprised of. And those are the kind of things that were out for the win, right? It's not like, again, they didn't have to click through each one and talk about the individual IP or anything like that, but just visualizing that it drove a project that they would have otherwise had a really difficult time selling. That's the type of stuff that we're into. It's just how does that drive a project or an initiative in general.
That network assessment side of what Domotz does, right? When you first plug in that agent, we discover all these devices. When you show them that list or you show them that topology, I agree with you. More often than not, the customer is like, I had no idea. And then you go back to them and say, yeah, this is why you can't use a 10100 switch, right?
That's the problem, or not problem, but like that's the thing with IoT that a lot of people don't yet, like especially end user, your typical person, they don't yet grasp what that really means. When they're like, when you see that the fact that you have a smart fridge on there and you have this, and you're like, I didn't know all these things were connected. It's like, oh, they're connected and they're responding out, and those are all different little Swiss cheese holes that people can just come right on in.
Yep, exactly. Well, we have time for one more question. I mean, is there anything, Ricky, from your perspective that maybe I should touch on from your point of view, or do you think we're good, we're covered, and we're ready?
Think the only thing that it's near and dear to us, which obviously is a huge question, so I'm gonna try to defer to you in the best way possible, is we're seeing a lot more security concerns come up in general, right? We have people that are very, very concerned with the security of their network. They want to understand it. So it's like, with Domotz in general, is it more focused on the speed of resolution? Like what do you think security-wise Domotz brings to the table the best? Is it closing the holes before they even have a chance to get in there? I mean, what do you think?
The one word that I use to describe security with respect to Domotz is awareness, right? Knowing what's on your network, I think, is extremely valuable when it comes to security. Knowing when devices show up that shouldn't be there, especially if you're dealing with segregated VLANs. If you're monitoring a VLAN, a point of sale system VLAN, and there should only be 5, IP addresses on this, but all of a sudden a 6th one shows up, that's a big red flag. And then of course, to your point, I think you're exactly right. Speed at which you can resolve that or understand what's going on, logging into the switch, blocking it, doing whatever you need to do through the firewall, right? That to me is really an important aspect to it. Of course, there's this side of knowing when people are getting into the network as well, just internal security and auditing. But for me, I go back to fundamentally awareness is such a critical part of security, and Domotz brings that to you. So it's a great question.
I bring that up, I guess part 2 of this, which is pretty much on par with what you're saying, is like we're seeing a big shift of compliancy, and like more and more players, even though they're not as mature as they previously were, like it's becoming more accessible. And I think tools like yours are fantastic because when it comes to both regular value that they add to the client just from a day-to-day perspective, but also for showing them what they're missing, Domotz has the means to talk about that. Again, like there's so many people that are going for PCI compliance and HIPAA compliant, and you name it, and the ability to read in there and try to take care of those things is just fascinating to me.
Well, Domotz is a SOC 2 compliant company, and so we of course have our own processes in place, but any company that's dealing with services for a customer, they have to have awareness of these networks. It's one of the fundamental tenets of all of these security platforms. When I say platforms, I'm talking about services like SOC and PCI and whatnot. And so, yeah, I mean, service providers need a tool like Domotz that does this network monitoring aspect. So, hey, great question. We're a little bit over our time. I hope that all of our service providers, integrators, customers, clients that have watched this got some good value out of it. Ricky, I appreciate you joining in, giving clear explanations of what CloudRadial is and how it can help service providers be more efficient and better engage, as we said, with their clients. I want everybody that is new to either CloudRadial or Domotz, take us up on these offers. We hope that they're helpful to you. And thank you very much. Ricky, anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I really want to thank you for having us here and for letting both me and Seth partake in a little deal action. But yeah, this was a really good conversation. Anytime you want to do some products, the little deals, I have to go with the hand motion with it as well.
Good. Well, we appreciate your time and spending time with us, because we just think this is really valuable for all of our customers. So 1 + 1 = 3, I said, and I hope that people see that. So thank you so much, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.